Yeah, this is good. All right.
So what is your name? What were you known as? And where did you do your thing?
My thing. What do you mean by that, though?
Where did you wrestle, my friend?
Sorry, I can't look at you. You don't have to repeat the question.
If you answer the questions, you can like talk to the Alta View sign over there if you want.
Yeah, okay, that's good. All right, so my name is Dominic Busey, but my wrestling name was Madog, and I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Why did you pick Madog?
If I can remember correctly, I had this video game called WWF Attitude for the PlayStation 1, and that was one of the names you could give a character. Though I think it had 2 Ds. Mine only has 1 D. And you get it.
Sorry. that was good. I didn't see that coming. I apologize.
Can you say that one more time in your own way, but say it also, I picked Mad Dog because?
Yeah, so I picked Mad Dog because I had this video game, WWF Attitude, for the PlayStation 1. And that was one of the names you could give your character. It had 2 Ds. Mine only has 1. And you get it.
How did you discover pro wrestling, man?
Oh, man. I feel like I know the answer to this, but I also don't know.
You can take a second, too.
Yeah, let's think.
We're just having... I know it's weird. No, it's
okay.
We're having a conversation, and Rick, you can ask a question, too, anytime.
Yeah.
When did I get into wrestling? When did I know? Okay, I know that I had toys, maybe, first, or something, and I started watching it around the beginning of the Attitude Era, I would say. Or maybe around like 6 or 7 years old. So probably in 97. But I don't remember why. I just remember liking it. And I think one of the first things I saw was the clip of The Undertaker throwing Mankind off the cell. And that was like cool for me for multiple reasons. One was because The Undertaker was my favorite wrestler. And 2, because my brother was actually there, so he's the one who kind of told me to watch that, and say, this happened in Pittsburgh. So that's probably what got me into it, and that's about when I started watching.
So your brother liking it is why you decided to kind of grab onto it?
It had to have been the biggest reason, because I can't see anybody else, in my house watching wrestling at that time.
So what made you want to backyard wrestle? Say that I wanted to backyard wrestle because... Or why, in your own way? I mean, I guess I didn't really have the intentions of wanting to backyard wrestle necessarily. I just wanted to wrestle, but we were little kids. We started so young that, I know for me, I was still very deep in my imagination and pretending and playing. So, when I would get sent to bed before, the sun would go down, I was not tired, and I would pretend like my bed was a wrestling ring, and I had those Hulk dolls, and I would fight those as a kid. And then one day, one day the neighbor, who you'll learn about,
you can just say his name.
Josh, should I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm talking to you, but I'm not going to say... is that right? I say Josh?
It's weird.
I know. Right. And then one day, Josh got a trampoline, and that kind of became the new wrestling ring. And I know that that's kind of what we intended to use it for, but we just started having fun and wrestling on it, and I think we just became aware of backyard wrestling at some point and thought that was even cooler.
So what would you say about backyard wrestling? Not necessarily the community that we're going to eventually get to, but what about wrestling in the backyard maybe felt different, or what resonated more with backyard wrestling than, say, backyard football?
Yeah.
So if you could somewhat put the question in that. I know that's a lot, but
yeah, say that question.
Just say backyard wrestling. Say why I think backyard wrestling was different than, say, backyard football is because.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Is everyone gonna get asked this same question?
I mean, maybe.
Okay.
This is kind of like the feeling interview too, since it's the first one, but...
Yeah. Oh, I'm
But does that make sense?
Yes.
For real, the question I'm asking you?
Yeah.
Because if they are dumb questions too, let me know.
Why did you decide to sink your time into doing this whenever it's no different
Yeah,
than
so in other words, we played football growing up, and it's something to do, it's to kill time. but the three of us, we put our lives into backyard wrestling before it even became, the base and just ETW. So what about pro wrestling, backyard wrestling, made you latch onto it and like put your whole shit into it?
Yeah. Okay. I got you. So I think the reason that, I was able to get into backyard wrestling as a thing and like put so much energy into it opposed to like something like backyard football where you just kind of play that with your friends and then you're done, is mainly because I felt like I had way more control in that situation. But it also added an element of creation that we had, and we were able to film it and kind of, mold it into what we wanted it to be. But, when you're just doing whatever, with your friends, it's kind of, I don't know what to say here.
If you can, pretend like this is a podcast question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just awkward to go back to the football things. I don't want to seem like I'm just talking about football.
So like, erase that part from your head then. Like, what gravitated you towards doing specifically this?
Yeah, I think I just thought it looked cool from like a viewer standpoint. So, if our friends saw us hitting each other, with weapons and going through tables and stuff that, maybe they'd want to watch or join, and, we could just make something of it. And I really enjoyed, taking from the camera to the, to the TV and rewatching it and seeing the production of it. So I think it was a little bit of kind of wrestling, and really just enjoying like playing, because we, when we first started doing it, I still really in my head, like I was like playing with my friends, but also was like we were making like a movie,
Does this help you if you look at me?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
All right. Because then we're kind of having a conversation, aren't we?
Yeah, like that just feels better.
So I'm going to jump around a little bit too, just because I tried to write the questions down as closely related as I can.
You're good. I like this. This is easy.
Yeah.
Rick,
if you could take a step back just a tad, just because whatever you're doing is in the shot a little bit. So who were your friends that you backyard wrestled with, like in the ETW days?
Okay, so
just say the guys that I started wrestling with were.
Okay, so the guys that I started wrestling with were Josh, because it was at his house and we were neighbors. We had another neighbor named Mackenzie. We had another neighbor named Kevin, who participated at one point in a time. And then my friend Quinn. And a few other people, I think, came into it at some point. That would be like kind of the original, people that were there, like the neighbors and stuff. I can't think of like who came at what time though, but those would be the people that I wrestled with. And what we called that, and this is super creative, so, understand that you're going to be wow here, but it was ETW, and that stood for Extreme Trampoline Wrestling. And that was the coolest thing we ever came up with, like, for sure. And it was extreme because we used weapons, and it was trampoline because the trampoline was a wrestling ring, and wrestling because we wrestled. That was a Kamala answer.
I can't wait for her to not tax tips like Donald Trump. But anyway.
I can't wait to slap that bitch. I can't say that on camera. The FBI will come for me. Alright, I'm ready for you.
So maybe either of you could help me structure this question a little bit. But so what did you think when you learned about there being like a national network of backyard wrestlers? Like when you realized, or like, so when Steve told you or kind of brought you into this world that this is like a national community, yeah. How, like,
worldwide community, actually.
Did you even care? Did that mean anything to you? Like, holy shit, there's more people that actually do this like we do?
Probably not, but only because...
So do the question?
Oh, yeah. So when I found out,
If you need a second to think about how to say it, that's
phrases.
fine.
Yeah, so like what I would probably do is... Okay.
So our friend Steve got into this the most, you could say.
Yeah.
He found this community online. And you don't even have to be more specific than that, I guess. And then he told us how, there's a community of kids everywhere, guys everywhere, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, okay. So, at the time we were wrestling, we became more aware of it, and our friend Steve, he was a part of something online, and he, became aware of, other people doing this, not just around us, but, in different parts of the country, maybe even, in other countries, but at some point, this, because he knew about this, he was getting us from a point to what we were doing on the trampoline and just having fun to kind of moving into this real world of backyard wrestling. And, initially it might have sounded cool to me if I was explaining it to the young me, but at the time I don't think I was really interested, because by that point I wouldn't say I was getting out of it, but that was a little bit more intimidating, and I wasn't invested enough to try to kind of prove myself in that world. So I would say that from there, I actually became a lot more hands-off and realized that it didn't mean that much to me, because if it did, I would have been like, let's go. But it was still really fun, and I am glad that it existed, because I wouldn't know these people, and that's the best part, is the people that you meet from it. So yeah. So
what do these relationships mean to you now?
Nothing, fuck them. No, I think it's cool because you have more stories to tell people, because whenever you're talking to some random stranger while you're working, or a coworker or anyone, small talk, if wrestling comes up, you can make the conversation a little bit different by introducing your own experience with wrestling, and then saying hey, I know some guys that did some things, here's some videos of them. So that part of the relationship is cool, because I can share some of the things that they did and kind of equate it to my experiences, but also just being able to talk to guys from different parts of the country, get different perspective, and just know if you were driving through, I drove from California to Pittsburgh to move home, and I stopped in Chicago and stayed with Matt Nix, and he bought me deep dish pizza. And you don't get to do that unless, all these guys are backyard wrestling.
Yeah, that's the shit we're looking for.
Yeah.
So where do you think you would be without backyard wrestling? In other words, how do you think would you call it childhood or teenage years, how do you think you would have formulated without it? What kind of person would you be?
That's tough, because...
If you could say the question a little bit. I think if I didn't get into backyard wrestling...
So if I didn't get into backyard wrestling, trying to figure out the person that I would have turned into is tough. I'd like to think it would be close to the same person, but it's probably not.
So how about instead, how would your life be different if
you didn't find this creative outlet?
Yeah, and not only that, but maybe even the community, or anything.
Okay.
What would be...
That was my follow-up question.
Yeah.
I see, okay. So...
If I didn't have this creative outlet as a kid,
yeah,
maybe.
So I guess if I wasn't doing this as a kid, if I didn't start wrestling, man...
You can take a minute.
Yeah, this is tough. Let me think about it.
Or we can come back to it.
Okay, so it's like the butterfly effect, right? Because I don't ask for a video camera for sure, or I do eventually ask for a video camera to film myself skateboarding. I don't know. So it's possible that I never get into production and kind of getting into that side of tape and recording, but it seems pretty obvious that I was always going to get into recording with how many ways there are to do it, and that I tried it, but that was really I think the first time I was doing that type of creating from a digital standpoint. So if I wasn't doing that, I feel like I would have found something else to fixate on with the production side attached to it. I just don't know what that would be. Probably like skateboarding or snowboarding, because I was doing that at the same time, and then eventually music. But it is hard to see a me that watched wrestling never step in a ring and just like try it once. So it's, I don't know, I would suck.
So let me ask you that now. What's we're gonna jump ahead here a little bit, but what does it feel like, the idea of stepping in an actual ring and having a match for this show? The possibility of it.
Yes. So the possibility of getting in a ring, which I have done, but I've never had a match in a ring. I never felt worthy of having a match in a ring, to be honest with you. But the feeling of being able to do that would be pretty cool. Probably pretty self-serving, because I just would like want to watch it just to be like, I wrestled in a ring. There's the Hurricanrana that I can do, you know, and show people that would be impressed by it. But by the same token, the experience would be cool. So, I mean, who knows?
Do you think that would be like the ultimate wrestling fantasy? Is there's going to be a group of people cheering you on in an actual ring? Like you're in an actual WWE ring?
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't... If WWE was dumb enough to pay me and put me in a ring, I would not say no. Because regardless of what happens, I'm going to get paid. In this situation, having a bunch of guys that know... I mean, not a lot of these guys actually know me. Like, I know some of them, but, like, the majority, I would say, like, I don't have, like, a very deep relationship with, other than we just know each other's names. So I would be intimidated as hell, because I'm actually, like... 15 years since we did this? Longer? Longer than 15? 15?
14.
It's been 14 years. I am not the same physically or mentally. So I would probably shit myself.
So who are you today? Because that's another question of mine. Who's Dominic today?
Oh, today I just recently became a father. So I'm Daddy Dom now to all you out there. I am married. Yeah, it's crazy. All the things that you're like supposed to do in life, like in terms of like what you learn as a kid, like I just feel like I'm kind of at all those points. So like I don't really know what's left. So maybe I have to go wrestle. But yeah, I mean, I'm just... How do I answer this? I still really like wrestling, but I don't watch it as much as I used to. I think I focus my time more on like the time, you know, like when you get home from work and you're playing video games and things of that nature. So I'm really not as invested in wrestling as I used to be. But like today I would still be like very willing to go to like live WWE events or like AEW events that come to Pittsburgh, because like really that's such a cool experience, and you don't know how many times you're going to get to do that. So that's something I'm still into doing. But these days I'm chilling in this room. Actually, that's not true. I can't lie to you. I'm chilling downstairs playing PlayStation 5 almost every day. And if you're not, good for you.
Talk about how most of us went on to maybe become professional wrestlers or stay in the business, and you left to go do Ultiview. So like I left wrestling, and since I've left wrestling, I filled my time doing Ultiview. So
okay,
about that somehow.
You could maybe say when you stopped, because you mentioned that you stopped pro wrestling or backyard wrestling and you went off to other stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how you found music, or that's when you found music, and then talk about Ultiview.
Yeah. Okay.
So when I finally stopped backyard wrestling, I really discovered music.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, I was saying, like, as I kind of distanced myself a little bit from backyard wrestling. Like, it was not the center of my universe anymore, because I realized it was such a big thing, and I maybe, you know, wasn't as interested as I thought that I was. I obviously was going to venture off into something else, which became music. I think like my last year of high school, I took a band class, which I was using as study hall, because that's what like you were told to do at our school, was like pick this band class and it's just a study hall and you don't have to do anything. Well, I guess the teacher at the time, Mr. Lee, you remember Mr. Lee? Thank you, Mr. Lee. You know Mr. Lee? Great guy, right?
I went to a lot of the color guard stuff.
Yeah.
I was chilling with the band a lot.
Well, wait till you hear how this man created time well wasted. So I was like making music at the time in Josh's like bedroom with like beats and stuff and auto-tune. Somebody just got killed again outside.
That was a mortar.
Yeah. But you know, I didn't really know how to play any instruments and blah blah blah. But anyways, that's kind of out of order from everything, but you can clip it. But yeah, I'm in this class, this band class is a study hall, and Mr. Lee, the teacher, is like, this is not going to be a thing anymore. Everyone, this is band class. What I'm going to have you do is everyone in here, do it on your own, but you have to learn an instrument. You have to figure one out. So I was like, I'm going to learn drums, right? That's not where you thought I was going with this. You're like, drums, what? But I did. I picked up the sticks and the little drum pad, but I did not think he was serious. So of course, you know, the first 2 weeks of this, I'm like, you know, just playing around, having fun. And then he was like, "All right, it's quiz time," and he gave us a quiz, and I failed. And he's like, you got to be serious. Like you seriously have to try. He's like, I won't fail you if you don't do well, but you have to try. So I was like, all right, screw the drums. And I picked up the guitar, and he gave me this chord book, and I sat there, and I figured out how to play guitar. And by the end of the year, I wrote my first song on the guitar, which I thought was pretty cool. And if he wouldn't have did that, I probably wouldn't have gone much further with music. But anyways, there was a lot of juvenile music at the time, but eventually when I became an adult, I moved out to California and actually started a band called Altaview, which is really now just a part-time hobby, but I'm still trying to, you know, make a few songs here and there. But that is really where my attention went, was into music, and that was the creative part of the wrestling that we spoke about a little bit, is the part that, you know, kind of transferred over to the music. So I kind of was able to put my passion with that kind of need for creating stuff, and that's kind of why wrestling, you know, became like the secondary thing to me, but was always very important. It just was more important to make music.
All right. Yeah.
Elio, I need you to shut the fuck up.
So as far as the show goes, is there what is your role in making the show happen? Do you have one?
Not really.
So what are you most looking forward to about the reunion show?
Okay.
And why do you think it's important, the show?
Okay. So what I'm most forward. How do I say that? I'm
looking excited. Looking forward to.
I'm so excited about blah 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 about the show.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What's the answer? What's the reason?
Like before you mentioned how you kind of know some of these people.
Yeah.
Would you say you're kind of looking forward to like spending time with these people in person?
That is.
And having stronger relationships.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, I got it. All right. I think for this show, I'm most forward.
Looking forward.
I think for this show, I'm most looking forward to seeing a lot of these guys, but not just, you know, seeing them and all that stuff, but like the actual days that we're going to be hanging out. Like, you know, we're standing there watching the matches and reacting all at the same time and yelling, or whenever the show's over and we're all out eating or walking on the streets. That's the stuff that is really fun. It's those nights that you're like, I really hope this night lasts a really long time. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to, and just hanging out and chilling, and hopefully no one gets fucked up.
I keep thinking that too.
Dude, people think they're gonna die. I've had multiple people message me saying that they're scared to die.
In the ring?
Yeah.
Oh man, well,
yeah.
Then maybe it will happen. Maybe
we never were scared to die before. In fact, we would not die. We could do whatever we wanted to do.
That's true.
All this is only worth it because we didn't die.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's been said.
By you.
Yeah.
That was your quote.
So what led up to this show, in your opinion? How did we get here? How did this show start to happen? Was it because of the podcast you were a part of?
Yeah, I'll tell that from my perspective.
So earlier this year, Rick and I started a podcast.
Yeah.
Over a year ago.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry, yeah. I keep thinking I came home this year.
So at this point, it's been over a year, but Rick and I started a podcast on Golden Triangle Media. Please subscribe, like, and follow. Is that how you say that? You don't follow.
No, comment, share, like, subscribe.
Yeah, please, yeah, there we go. So we started a podcast, and what we were doing was recovering a lot of the old footage from, like, the earliest days before I even knew Rick, up until the entire community was involved, and we talked about that. And it, every episode grew as something that, I felt like I was creating from a audio standpoint, because I was so big on audio, I am very big on audio, so that was something I took a lot of pride in. Meanwhile, I had someone else there, like, really supplying all the video and the content and the editing, and I was able to just focus in on this thing, and we did this podcast. And what we realized was we were really good at doing this podcast, but it was fun, and we started talking about all these people, and then we had a little bit of drama, and it was dope. And then we had more ears on us, and then all of a sudden, like, Facebook, we had a little group that it's been around, the group's been around, but then the podcast started making people talk, and then all of a sudden Rick's like, I'm going to do a show, and I was like, you should do a show. And then we said on the podcast that we're going to do a show. So we're going to do a show.